How many alumni? Oh, and I currently teach over at Navajo Technical University, teaching Indigenous Studies. And then I'm also a member of a group that we call the Nest Center Research and Evaluation. And that particular organization is looking at a lot of the issues and problems that are facing our people from a Navajo perspective, incorporating a lot of our traditional ways and stories into looking at a lot of the issues that we're faced with. So, and I'm honored to be here and to be a part of this endeavor that is so close to our heart and mind, considering all that we're faced with. And what I want to do is use one of our traditional ceremonial song. It's a protection song, because you hear a lot of things out there, things that are not good, people that are actually really hostile. And you hear about different things happening in some of the campaign headquarters. And we have our own children, our own people that are out there. I'm going to use the song for their protection, as well as protection for our Vice President Kamala Harris, and then also Governor Tim Wallace. And we really feel that they're special people because they talk a lot about the issues that are really close to our heart. So that's what I'm going to do. And then after that, I'm going to offer a prayer. You know, I have a dad. He's about 100 years old, 102 years old. He's the one that gave me this prayer feather. It's an eagle feather. It's one of the most sacred feathers that you can have in your possession. No. So that's what I'm going to use as I offer my song and then my prayer. Henang heyo, henang heyo, yo henang henang, henang heyo, henang heyo, henang heyo, henang heyo, yo henang henang. Chanson de l'Kili, alles in de Schlinkwashina Shatla, henang henang, Godzil de l'Kili, Zibella Tratte, Shina Shatla, henang henang, et Anyalki, National Tilkwashina Shatla, henang henang, Benahotzidi, alles in de Schlinkwashina Shatla, henang henang, Anogay, Benahotzidi, alles in de Schlinkwashina Shatla, henang henang, henang heyo, henang heyo, henang heyo, henang heyo, yo henang henang, chanson toutes les jours, alles in de Schlinkwashina Shatla, henang henang, Godzil toutes les jours, Zibella Tratte, Shina Shatla, henang henang, Ed Anyalti, National Tilkwashina Shatla, henang henang, Benahotzidi, alles in de Schlinkwashina Shatla, henang henang, Sa Anogay, Benahotzidi, alles in de Schlinkwashina Shatla, henang henang, henang heyo, henang heyo, henang heyo, henang heyo, yo henang henang, chanson tlitsui, alles in de Schlinkwashina Shatla, henang henang, Godzil tlitsui, Zibella Tratte, Shina Shatla, henang henang, Benahotzidi, alles in de Schlinkwashina Shatla, henang henang, Sa Anogay, Benahotzidi, alles in de Schlinkwashina Shatla, henang henang, henang heyo, henang heyo, henang heyo ong henang heyo yo ong henang henang shason lakoi alashin shliko shina shatla henang henang gatzit lakoi zebelat khat shina shatla henang henang et anyati nashnot hilko shina shatla henang henang benahot zedi alashin shliko shina shatla henang henang Sa'anagay benahotzi halashin shliko shina shatla henang 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 heyo oh henang heyo henang heyo oh henang heyo yo oh henang 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 heyo oh henang heyo henang heyo oh henang heyo yo oh henang henang pa Kada jodo le Nichemana zan kadon is kado ta conquest of this night this constantly in the other shitaya the kish do kado ni yado so the sin lindo little ta con don kitha jona e don himatlahana e yabi yon soni ni ka nindik ni ka ande dil ka ni ka sada tzin ko a he ni le a kwitle lo ta con hikino ego Naka no son nikachaya chicken hiltatos nako nikilta well jishin leko ta kon hini leko ta kon and the other digging the net do ta kon ya ta kon digging the net nost edge ha shet ne nost edge kon di ya ta kon di o aligi ya ta kon ya hi kain leko ta kon ha shin sognat leniki jo di ta kon ya penigat akon ya na nilto adonda akon ya ntausils le ko akon akon hikodo ya tenen hit nenigi dobsin shlijin hit nenigi hashin sogo akon chopa initz le ko akon ayat egit akit ni nado lit akon ayat egit akon en halchendon kit so ken nalikat akon ya pelkit to le hachin hol ago akon ekut Abelhit little ta kon nitzen le kota hasine large hot akon ya benkichi na hot in le kota kon ako ekwe ya ta kon Vice President Kamala Harris to adon the Governor Harris-Walz ajo hot akon benat an liniki hot akon hashin tsoko pohnet zago nil le kota kon nana sache ya etsudo ya ko jo hot ya akon yat watch in liniki hasine large hot abel hades beno o kot ya to aski kot in consecration leader ko hot ya kot le kot we're thankful, merciful Spirit, for all the guidance that you have given us each and every day, how you protect our families as well as all of our relatives. And we, at this time, ask you that you may look down upon us. You can touch the heart and minds of all the people that are gathered here. These wonderful relatives, it was good to see some of them. I haven't seen some of them in a while, and I had a chance to greet them. And also, we're gathered here on something that's very important to us as Native people. And we ask you, Heavenly Father, merciful Spirit, and that you can look down upon us and that everything can be good for us as we are gathered here. And the support that we have for Vice President Kamala Harris and also Governor Harris-Walz. We support what they're talking about because they address a lot of the things that are of concern to us, issues that are really important to us. Because one of the things that we are very grateful is the land that you have given us that we dwell on since time immemorial. With all the different ceremonial ways, prayers, songs, all these things, we're thankful for that. And we ask that you can continue for it to be like that for us as Native people. And then also the sovereign rights that we have, we're so mindful and we're so protective of that. And we ask you that you could continue to have that in our midst. And we have a lot of other issues that we're faced with that we want to have addressed. And our elders, they talk about this place, It's a sacred place that when way back, when our people coming back from the 4-year incarceration, they came back here and they talked about how they will continue to carry on their lives. And Governor Tim Walz na khawan tiki hata kon zona go hata kon kwa bazar di tsinto hata kon hata kwa nikik ein lenigi hata kon beche hosdol tsinto ben sakhe da do ado epic ein lenigi hata kon yel khodol ne to ba chino hata akot aye echo pa initsin le ko hata kon akot aye hata kon you can protect all the people. We have close relatives who are working at many of these headquarters, Harris-Walz headquarters, and the campaign headquarters. Okay, you hear all kind of things that makes you think there are people out there that are really hostile. And we ask you that you can protect all those campaign centers throughout the state of Arizona, as well as throughout the country where all of our people are there. You could protect them each and every day. And I ask you at this time, merciful Spirit, you could also protect the family of Vice President Harris, and then also the family of Governor Walz. Kut aya esor de sintna idish kanjon ne jongo kut akwe satit le to wa ko ta ko yan de ni kha to le na ka anan son ha chin pa ko kut aya esor de sintna le ko ta ko nikit kha jona hata ko han ta de hata ko thot na shin to bayaj na de le na se nan se na de le de hata ko ya hata ko ta de ne ke dat ine ko den ki chjon هنجون رولي تاكون السن كيت لا قول يده هتاكون إيش هذا هتاكون تقول نشين خبياش نهدت له ننسى نهدت له ده هتاكون شدنا كده إنه كده نجش هنجون رولي تاكون عند هتاكون هتاكون كما يوسكري خالكانا نغنده كده نجش هنجون رولي تقول نشين خبياش نهدت له ننسى نهدت له ده هتاكون the naked out in a credit on Jean Little and the other no constant child case that is dote, what I call a Portland, a sheet of bias now did it lay and said now did it lay, and the other had the naked out in a credit on Jean Little a yas neither couldn't is the naked out in a credit on Jean Little and the other had I call a yabikete, what I call a Portland, a sheet of bias that I call in that later credit on Jean Little. Hajondo little dacon, hajonastly, 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 hajonastly. Oh, yeah.
Hey, there we go. Wake up, wake up. Yeah, beautiful day. I'm sorry I interrupted Stevie Wonder. I'm sorry. Ja, het is ik edo she denesh e Clara Pratt and she akia ani and shle ado bilagana bashishin honagatni da shitshe bilagana da shanela. Hello, everybody. It's such a joy and a privilege to be here in Window Rock with you. I'm Claire Pratt. I'm the chair of the Democratic National Committee Native American Caucus. As someone who grew up right here on the Navajo Nation in Sesa'ana, Lupton, just 45 minutes south. As you take the road down here, you got to watch those cows and those horses, right? Yeah, the potholes on BIA 12 there. It's a real honor to share this time with you, and I really appreciate each and every one of you taking time out of your busy day and your busy schedules to be here with us today. I understand firsthand the challenges that our communities face. Like so many of us, I grew up without running water and electricity and basic infrastructure, roads, never mind cell phones, those weren't even a thing then. But for too long, we've seen promises come and go without a lot of follow through. But today with leaders like Governor Tim Walz, who's here with us, And Vice President Kamala Harris, we have leaders who are truly committed, not just to keeping promises, but to respecting our sovereignty and to working with us on a path forward to lasting economic empowerment. And we've seen how the Biden-Harris administration has made good on promises to us. They didn't come and go. They came and they have delivered consistency over the last 4 years, and we need to keep that. I have spent my career fighting for our collective right to sovereignty and economic growth because I believe in the strength of our Diné people. In my work as the chair of the DNC Native Caucus and working for the Navajo Nation in many capacities, I have seen how much impact we can collectively have when we come together to advocate for our rights and to protect our environment. Vice President Harris and Governor Walz believe in that vision too. They understand that our communities, we need resources, that we deserve a seat at every level of decision making. This campaign is about building a future where Native voices aren't just heard, and we're not just there to provide some guidance. We are actually at the table, shaping the policies that matter to us. Like President Biden says about his cabinet, we need a government that looks like America. It's about partnership. It's about giving tribes a real say in everything from education to healthcare to energy development. Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, they do not care about policies that protect us, our sovereignty, our people. They care about their personal power, and they want to enact their Project 2025 agenda to take away our rights and our freedom. It's not right for us, and it's not right for the country. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, on the other hand, will take us on a new path forward that will protect our rights and freedoms and ensure everyone in our community can not just get by, but actually get ahead. Standing here today, I'm reminded of what can happen when we combine our resilience with real partnership. With leaders like Governor Tim Walz, who will be speaking to you shortly, and Vice President Harris, we have an incredible chance to keep building a new way forward where our Navajo communities thrive. So we must all make our voices heard at the ballot box, and we all have to vote. And we have to remind everyone in our communities to vote. We have to go Hogan to Hogan. We have to go to all of our families and friends and relatives. It's really easy to put that ballot aside and forget about it. Nasta Aidan, it's already past November 5th, and you're like, oh yeah. So please make a plan to vote. Whether you're gonna vote early by mail or in person, please do so. Make that plan and make sure your relatives have that plan too. Let's get out our Diné vote and let's elect Vice President Harris and Governor Walz to the White House. Yeah.
I'm back. Well, ladies and gentlemen, my leaders, respected elders, and fellow community members, yat nikidishnido lehtichnikwa atlasitli ashin ein shlido tkatnesani ebashichin twadich ne dashiche do tkachine dashanale. So yat nikidini do les Jonathan Nez. Well, this beautiful language, the Navajo language, your language, our language, help win battles in war and help win World War II. I speak it today to honor our warriors and our co-talkers. And if you could see behind me, the flags are half staff, and a moment of silence for our fallen warrior, Mr. John Kinzel Sr.
Our veterans, our men and women currently in the armed forces, and their families, we thank you for your service. Let's give them a big round of applause, our warriors. As the former president of the Navajo Nation, today I stand before you to talk about a powerful tool we possess, our vote. As Native Americans, our voices have long been marginalized, but now is the time for us to reclaim our power and make our presence felt. Let us take a moment to reflect on our history. For generations, our rights and voices were suppressed. Many of our ancestors fought tirelessly for recognition and the right to be heard. Today, we honor their sacrifices by actively participating in the democratic process. Voting is not just a right, it is a responsibility we carry forward in their memory. Every election is important, whether tribal, local, state, or federal. When we vote, we shape decisions on education, health care, land and water rights, and many other issues that directly affect our communities. By showing up at the polls, we send a clear message. We are still here. We matter. And we will not be overlooked. Voting gives us the opportunity to shape our future. It allows us to elect leaders who understand our unique challenges and will advocate for our rights. We have the power to support candidates who prioritize the needs of indigenous communities and are committed to honoring our treaties and protecting our lands. I recognize that there are challenges we face, such as limited access to polling places, language barriers, and misinformation about the voting process. However, we must work together to overcome these obstacles. Let's support one another by sharing accurate information, organizing transportation to the polls. Let's give our elders a ride. And ensuring everyone knows when, where, and how to vote. I urge each of you to take action. Let us warrior up. By voting, you are on the front lines. Listen to this. By voting, you are on the front lines, defending our culture, tradition, and language. Talk to your friends and family about the importance of voting. Offer assistance to anyone who may be unsure about how or where to vote. Together, in unity, let's create a ripple effect in our communities. So let's rise to this occasion. Let us honor our warriors who protected our freedoms and help expand democracy throughout the world by voting in this election. Let us honor our ancestors who persevered through tough times by voting in this election. The time is now. Are you ready? Join me in voting for democracy. Join me in voting for freedom. Let's take back our country from the division, the hate, and anger. Let's come back together and work for our children, grandchildren, and 7 generations and beyond. Let's do this! Go vote! Ashora Ahehe. Thank you, and God bless the United States of America.
Okay. Okay, so are y'all going to make Jonathan Nez your next congressman? Absolutely. I am for that. Yat Gwazi Helpa. Hello, relatives and friends. I'm so happy to be back here in Window Rock, Arizona. I first want to say thank you to all of the staff and all of the volunteers for all of your hard work. You know, the events like this don't just happen. It takes a lot of hard work from folks. And I will tell you something, no candidate ever won an election on their own. It takes a lot of volunteers. It takes a lot of people working really hard. So thank you all for what you have done. We have 9 more days. Thank you all for what you will do. We have so much at stake in this election, and as I said, just 9 days left to vote. And get out the vote, all of us together, for Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz. A central question sits at the heart of this election. Who do we trust to fight for us? To fight for our rights, to fight for fairness, for justice, and for freedom. On November 5th, we have the power to decide between a new way forward for America or the same old tired playbook of a former president. And you know what President Obama says, don't boo, vote. Between our Vice President Kamala Harris and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, both laser focused on the future, or Donald Trump, who wants to drag us back to the past. Well, I got news for him. We are not going back. You know, like so many people across this country, I've seen what America can be at its toughest moments and at its most promising. I know what it's like to earn just enough money to keep a roof over my child's head. And I will fight for Kamala Harris because she understands that story too. Her mother worked long hours to pay the bills on time and saved every penny she could after that so she could give Kamala and her sister a fair shot at a brighter future. I will fight for Kamala Harris because she has always fought for the middle class, for families like mine and families like yours. Because she knows what it means to be middle class. Because throughout her career in public service, her only client ever has been the people. The people, that's us, everyone. Because she's not afraid to take on big corporations that take advantage of hardworking Americans, and because she has cast critical votes to cut health care costs, cut insulin costs, cut taxes for hardworking households. This kind of leadership in the White House is critically important for our communities. Today, thanks to President Biden and Vice President Harris, we're seeing historic levels of economic investment and opportunity for tribal communities and Native people across the country. As Vice President Kamala Harris has worked to uplift Indigenous peoples, ensuring that we have the resources and opportunities we need to thrive. She's led the charge to remove lead pipes in our schools and homes so that our children have clean drinking water. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz both have been fierce advocates for Native people, championing initiatives that promote cultural preservation and economic growth, giving Native people a voice in state government, righting historical wrongs, and putting real action behind promises that have been made to tribal communities. Now, together, they are running to build on this progress, They have a vision and a plan to build an opportunity economy that lifts up everyone, not just the wealthiest Americans. It includes tax relief for more than 100 million Americans. It would expand the child tax credit, including an additional $6,000 for families with a newborn child. It would lower the price of health care and prescription drugs, make it easier to buy a home, and help you to start your own business. The defining goal of a Harris-Walz presidency will be strengthening and growing the middle class and forging a future where everyone has a chance to not only get by, but to get ahead. But my friends and relatives, all this progress, all of this possibility is at stake in this election. Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are promising a future that would take us backward. They have a dangerous agenda called Project 2025. And it's a real thing. It's a great big book with lots of pages in it on ways to make America worse. That would dismantle the federal government, roll back critical hard-won protections, erode our democracy, and restrict our access to health care and education. That's not what we want, is it? And we know it's not just talk. Last time around, he gave a $15 billion windfall to an industry that doesn't even need it. But that's on par with him, his tax cuts. He wants to benefit the wealthiest among us, and he abandoned the Paris Climate Accords. That is not progress. Our communities, our livelihoods, our planet cannot afford another 4 years of ignorance and inaction. Fortunately, we have another choice in Vice President Harris and Governor Walz. We have someone and people to vote for. A future where there's a place for every American, where our middle class is strong and our rights and freedoms are protected. The freedom to vote, the freedom to be safe from gun violence, and the right of every American to make their own health care decisions without government interference. These are two leaders who believe that no matter your background, you deserve a fair shot. They believe in freedom, opportunity, and dignity, not for just some people, but for all people. So what do you say, Arizona? What do you say, Navajo Nation? Are you ready to show up for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz? Look, I've run in close races before. I know what this election is all about. It's hard work. What we all decide to do between now and Election Day is what counts. And I'll tell you something more. The only poll that counts is the one on Election Day. And that's why we all need to get out to vote. So let's be fierce. Let's make sure that once you have your plan to vote, you help someone else make theirs. Your aunties, your uncles, your grandmas, your grandpas, your nieces and nephews and sons and daughters and children, everyone, all the in-laws, make sure they get out to vote, right? So make someone else. Maybe you can drive by and pick somebody up and take them to the polling location so that they can vote on Election Day or before. As Governor Walz might say, let's leave it all out on the field. Yes, Coach. So let's elect Jonathan Nez, the first Native American to Congress from Arizona. Let's elect Ruben Gallego for the U.S. Senate. let's elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz and Democrats down the ballot. Let's go down. Thank you, everyone.
This election is about two very different visions for our nation. The relationship between tribal nations and the United States is sacred. We must honor tribal sovereignty, embrace our trust in treaty obligations, and ensure tribal self-determination. This will be a very tight race until the very end. We will win.
Visit iwillvote.com and make a plan to vote for Kamala Harris.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
Okay, friends and relatives, let me welcome our distinguished guests to the great Navajo Nation. Beginning with our guest of honor, the next Vice President of the United States of America, Governor Tim Walz. Governor Walz is coming here today to recognize the voice of Native Americans and the huge impact we will have at the polls this year. No election has been as important to the Navajo people as this one on November 5th. I would like to welcome some other honored guests here with us today. Former Navajo Nation President and Congressional District 2 candidate Jonathan Nez. Former President Dr. Joe Shirley Jr. And the first Native American Secretary of Interior, Deb Haaland. And U.S. Senator Mark Kelly, a strong ally, a sponsor of the Northeastern Arizona Indian Water Rights Settlement Act by Hidakad. And I would not forget former state representative and our First Lady, Jasmine Blackwater Nygren. Thank you all for coming to the capital of the Navajo Nation today to help me welcome and support our friend, the man generation of kids have known as Coach Governor Tim Walz. A few months ago, I was a proud Arizona delegate at the Democratic National Convention. I was very proud to cast my vote for then Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz as the nominees for President and Vice President of the United States of America. And I'm proud to cast my vote for them again. And I encourage you to vote for them. As Navajos, we have survived the long walk of the 1860s. Our veterans turned the tides in world wars. Navajos have lived through forced relocation. We continue to speak our Navajo language, and we are still here. As Navajos, we cherish and practice our culture. We continue to instill our ancient teachings in our children. We fight for a love of our Navajo culture above all, from the signing of our treaty in 1868 to every visit of our leaders make to Washington, D.C., we hold the rainbow of our sovereignty in the highest regard. Let's vote for those who know and will support our self-determination, our prosperity, our veterans, our elders, and our children, and our tribal sovereignty for all Native nations across this great country. Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz for President and Vice President of the United States. Yesterday, President Joe Biden traveled across the country to Arizona. He came to the Gila River Indian community. After 150 years of our Native children being subject to cruelty and trauma committed at the federal Indian boarding schools, President Biden was the first American president to say, "I apologize." Our children were stolen from their families when they were herding their sheep. They were punished for speaking the Navajo language. They were belittled for believing in the words and prayers of their grandmothers and grandfathers. Yet, we survived, and we are still here. President Biden's apology to Native nations is an important step towards healing, towards being heard, towards our pains being acknowledged, and towards the first Americans being prioritized. Let me tell you a little bit about Governor Walz. Governor Walz was the first governor to visit all 11 nations in Minnesota. In 2021, Governor Walz signed a bill codifying government-to-government relations with tribal consultation into law. This bill recognized the unique legal relationships with the 11 Minnesota tribes. It affirmed tribal sovereignty, and he appointed tribal liaisons to assist tribal nations as well as educating state leadership on tribal nations. I want to thank Governor Walz for his commitment to Indian country. The Walz-Flanagan administration invested in the preservation of native language. The Harris-Walz administration will do the same for tribes across this country. When we elect Vice President Harris and Governor Walz as our next president and vice president, Minnesota will have the first Native American governor, my good friend, matriarch Peggy Flanagan. Not only has Governor Walz showcased his commitment to Native communities, but he also understands the importance of standing with the families of our relatives who have gone missing or were murdered. In 2021, Governor Walz signed the first state MMIR office into law. Governor Walz has acknowledged the importance of Native voices. He will continue that dedication on a larger stage, the national stage. Together, we will build a future for our Native people. Governor Walz, we look forward to your leadership. We look forward to the commitment to honor the trust responsibility that the federal government holds with Native nations. As your Navajo Nation president, I continue to advocate for the passage of RECA so uranium miners and descendants receive the benefits they need and deserve. On Monday, I was at the White House to advocate for the appointment of a commissioner of the Office of Navajo, Hopi, and Indian Relocation. We have not had a presidentially appointed commissioner in 30 years, and I look forward to your leadership to get somebody appointed. We are building homes. We are connecting power to homes. We are supplying water to homes. We are building homes for our veterans. We are making our roads safer, and we are ensuring water rights for the future generations to come. Vice President Harris and I are committed to working with both the Republican and Democratic Party. Working with both parties is integral to ensuring we push initiatives forward in Indian country. This is how President Harris and Vice President Walz will support Indian country. The Navajo Nation and I look forward to partnering with Vice President Tim Walz to move the Navajo Nation and Indian country forward just like he did in Minnesota. With the partnership we have built with President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, we are investing in education, healthcare, infrastructure, economic development. We are reclaiming our language, our traditions, and our sovereignty. We are doing this with the knowledge that our history has prepared us for every challenge we face. Together, we will create a future that honors the sacrifices of our ancestors and fulfills the dreams of our children. Under Tim Walz and Kamala Harris, every Native American person will matter equally. Together, as one nation, President Kamala Harris and Vice President Walz will be thinking for the future. So Navajo Nation, let's get them elected November 5th.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Window Rock. What a great crowd. I'm really excited to be here. And I'm really excited to welcome Governor Walz to the Navajo Nation. Folks, there is an election in just 10 days. And Tim Walz, Governor Walz could be anywhere in the country, but he's here. He's here in Window Rock on the Navajo Nation because he and Kamala Harris care about you. They care about this community. And they care about the unique challenges that you all face. They care about earning your vote so they can partner with you to solve these challenges. Kamala Harris has already shown that as Vice President. And working together, we are bringing running water and electricity to Navajo homes. We're bringing high-speed internet to more of the Navajo community. And we're investing in tribal schools and hospitals. And folks, that's what happens, and that's what's possible when you elect leaders who listen to and prioritize your community. Leaders like Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. And leaders like my friend Jonathan Nez, who is going to win, by the way, that is going to be the first Native American to represent Arizona in the U.S. Congress. Donald Trump. Donald Trump does not understand Native communities. He does not respect tribal sovereignty. His Project 2025, that agenda would threaten tribal and public lands and roll back environmental protections. And in a community where so many folks have served in our military, Donald Trump doesn't understand that either. I got a question for you guys. Are there any Marine veterans here? U.S. Marines? How about family members of Marines? Now that feels like about half of the crowd. You know, Donald Trump called more than 1,800 U.S. Marines who lost their lives at Bellawood in World War I as suckers. He also referred to service members who died in World War I and who were buried in France as losers. And Trump's own chief of staff, Marine Corps General John Kelly, warned just this week. Now, these are his words, and I quote, "Trump met the definition of a fascist, would govern like a dictator if allowed, and has no understanding of the Constitution or the concept of rule of law." Donald Trump doesn't get us veterans. He doesn't understand us. He doesn't understand service, what it means to put something else ahead of himself. That's why he cannot be commander-in-chief again. So, folks, how do we keep that from happening? It's not rocket science. If it was, I could help. But it ain't. It's all about who works harder. That's it. It's pretty simple. So, here's my job for all of you. First order of business. You got to make a plan to vote. So, find your nearest drop box or vote center. And you can go to this website, iwillvote.com. That's iwillvote.com. If you need assistance with voting and you want to get some assistance over the phone, there's a voter hotline that has assistance available in Dene. And that number is 833-VOTE, the number 4, AZ. So write this down if you got a pen. 833-868-3429. I'm going to say it again. 833-868-3429. And once you vote, once you got it all figured out and you voted, I want you to go help your friends and family members to vote as well. This is really important. At this point, this is the entire election. And the difference between Kamala Harris and Governor Walz winning in the state of Arizona or Donald Trump and that other guy, the difference could be here on the Navajo Nation. So it's going to take every single one of us to make sure that this happens. If we work harder, in 10 days, we will turn the page and move our country forward with great leaders who will listen and respect this community. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Don't forget to vote.
Guys, I promise. That's why I'm here. Let's see. Okay. Yat ishk edoshidne. She Ian Teller nishke. Aro do ne inshlinigi eid kudich eating nishle. Kia ani e bashchin my diskizni edashache do toglini edashanale. Akwit out and nishle. Hello, Wind the Rock. How are you guys feeling? Are you guys ready to meet the coach? Exciting. Well, again, my name is Ian Teller, and it is a privilege to stand before you today. I was born and raised right here on the Nebuchadnezzar, on the Navajo Nation. As an advocate for Native voices, especially our youth, I've seen the incredible strength and resilience of our people, as well as the challenges we have to face, from limited resources to the ongoing fight for our rights, our lands, our culture. Today, Indigenous youth are stepping up to ensure our voices are heard and respected. In those decisions that are made to shape our futures, we are using our voices to advocate for real political participation, increased resources in our education and our healthcare, the protection of our sacred lands. We need to stand up for us. And we need an administration that stands up for who we are. And that's Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz. As we gather here today, let us, a little bit early, we still got a little bit. As we gather here today, let us remember that progress is possible, but it is not guaranteed. That's why I'm incredibly proud to introduce someone who embodies that commitment, to tribal communities. As governor of Minnesota, he has demonstrated serious dedication to Native American issues, not make-believe. He supports with policies and promotes tribal sovereignty and protects our precious lands and our resources. And when we cast our ballots, we are not just voting to elect a president. We are voting to uplift a nation, our nation. With leaders like Governor Walz and Vice President Harris, who are committed to uplifting Indigenous youth and Indigenous voices and honoring and respecting tribal sovereignty, we have a unique opportunity to forge meaningful partnerships that will ensure the next generation of Native youth will support and have the opportunities to lead our communities towards a brighter future. There is so much on the line this election. So to every young Native person listening, let's show our power at the ballot box this election, and let's elect Vice President Harris and Governor Walz. I am impassioned, and I have to say, I'm implored to say today, if you are voting for Donald Trump, if you choose to say you're undecided, let me say this. Donald Trump is not here. Donald Trump has never come to our home. Donald Trump will probably never come here. And that's real. Tim Walz and Kamala Harris recognize our power. We have that power. Here in Arizona, we have that power. So the next time when we hear Governor Walz and Vice President Harris as president and vice president, it will be because of us. So in Chicago, thank you for being here. And now it is my pleasure to introduce to you a true advocate for our communities, our next Vice President, Tim Walz.
Well, hello, Window Rock. And to Ian, thank you for the beautiful introduction. Thank you for giving us hope in the next generation and the future of leadership that we've got. I want to start by experiencing a deep sense of gratitude to the Navajo Nation for having me on this land. I understand that it is a privilege to be standing here on Navajo land, and I am grateful that you would see fit to bring me here as we talk about and I try and ask and earn your vote to make Kamala Harris President of the United States. To President Nygren, thank you for your incredible hospitality, and thank you for this beautiful gift. I wear it with pride. Thank you. To former President Nez, make sure we send him to Congress. Make sure we send him to Congress. I also want to say thank you for having the wisdom on behalf of the entire country, on behalf of this entire country, thank you for sending a national treasure that's Mark Kelly to the United States Senate. We're grateful. Now you know there's some work to do. Give him a buddy there. Send Ruben Gallego there with him. And on a point of personal privilege, a phenomenal leader, a transformational leader, and someone that I am just incredibly proud to call a friend, Deb Haaland. Thank you, Deb Haaland. And to all of you out there, I want to give a special thank you to all the Navajo Nation veterans as we stand on this sacred park here. I want to recognize my fellow veterans in this. And I want to be clear to everyone, I think you can't say this enough. Native Americans have served this country in uniform in every major conflict for over 200 years. And this nation, the Navajo Nation, and the nation of the United States lost a treasure in John Kinzel Sr., one of the original Navajo code talkers. These flags are flying at half staff. He served in Guam, Guadalcanal, and Iwo Jima. And as a point of personal pride, I want to make note of this. Many of the Navajo code talkers received their training in St. Paul, Minnesota, is where they trained. So the connection to Minnesota and connection to the nation is strong. And I still want to note, Native people serve at a higher rate in our armed forces than any other population in the country. So on behalf of everyone in the United States, thank you for that service to each and every one of us. Now look, this is an amazing sight on an amazing piece of land. It's a beautiful Saturday afternoon. You could be anywhere. You could be doing anything else, but you chose to come here because you understand that the democracy matters Your love of the Navajo Nation and of the United States is strong, and your presence here is proof of that. Thank you. I'm here today because there's 10 days left till this election. Not that anyone's counting, right? But I also want to note, we're here because we're not taking any vote for granted, and we're here to show the respect to the Navajo Nation and earn your vote. Now, I'll tell you, we're running like everything's on the line because everything's on the line. I'm proud to be on this ticket with Kamala Harris because it's pretty simple with Kamala Harris. She has had one client and one focus her entire career, the people. She stood up for women and children against predators and abusers. She stood up for seniors against fraudsters and big corporate interests. And she stood up for families and community against transnational gangs and drug traffickers. And here's the thing, when people came to Kamala Harris to ask for help, she never asked if they were a Democrat or Republican. She simply said, how can I help? How can I help? Now, usually I want to acknowledge this. You're no strangers to this. They maybe don't come out here, but you hear them on TV or you hear them in Gallup, you hear them elsewhere. It gets to be about election time, and politicians start showing up in Indian country asking for votes. And usually they come doing that and they haven't done a damn thing before to make you get that vote to them. I hope you've seen, and I hope we've proved it, that's not the case with Kamala Harris and myself. I want to be clear and make sure you hear it and that the country hears it. Kamala Harris and I recognize the promises this country has been made to indigenous peoples. We will safeguard and strengthen the bonds between our nations and uphold our trust and treaty obligations. The highest law is to honor tribal sovereignty, promote tribal consultation, and ensure tribal self-determination across this country. And you know, it's pretty simple too. If tribal nations are doing well and your kids are doing well, the rest of the country's going to be just fine. As governor of Minnesota, I've been fortunate to work closely with our 11 sovereign tribal communities, including the Anishinaabe and the Dakota. And I will note, we run as a ticket in Minnesota, and my partner in this work, Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, is a member of the White Earth Band of Ojibwe. She will become this nation's first ever Native woman governor of a state when we win this race. A couple weeks ago, I had the opportunity to meet with Governor Lewis and the Gila Band River Indian community, just as Vice President Harris did last year. And in our conversations with Native people across this country, I hear an overwhelming call, and one that taps into an idea of a fresh start, a new way forward, taps into the ambitions and dreams of all Americans. A new generation of leadership that is truly focused on improving lives, not creating chaos, fear, and division. Kamala and I know that a new way forward is what not just Indian country needs, but the rest of the country needs. We know you are focused on an economy that works for everyone by lowering cost. And every family gets a chance to not just get by, but to get ahead. First and foremost, taking on this issue of price gouging and food prices at the grocery store. Taking on corporate price gouging to make sure those prices are fair and they work for families. Now look, you know there's two choices in this race. I would make the case to you they could not be further apart. Donald Trump only want to give their billionaire friends more tax cuts, while they put a $4,000 Trump sales tax on each and every one of us. I don't believe a whole lot of things that Donald Trump promises, but I do believe this. He's promised that he will do a tax cut for the wealthy, and he's promised he will put that tax on all items coming into this country. I believe he will do that. Kamala Harris gives you an option. 100 million Americans will see a tax cut, including, and I think this is the most important, a $6,000 child tax credit when your child is born in that first year of their life to get them off to a good start. You gotta buy a crib, you gotta buy the car seat, you gotta buy the diapers, and it's expensive. And we need to get them off to a good start. And we will protect the Affordable Care Act to so many of you, whether it's in the Indian health system or others. The Affordable Care Act makes sure that you can't be discriminated against for pre-existing conditions. And making sure that drug prices come down, finally. Can I just mention this issue around insulin? We have it for seniors now. Kamala Harris has promised that all Americans will see a cap on insulin. And we know that diabetes runs higher in Indian country, and it's unacceptable on these differences amongst wealth. We know it is unacceptable that Native women die in childbirth at a higher rate than others. It is unacceptable that life expectancies are shorter. We can do something about it. And on insulin, $35 to keep the cap on that. Here's the problem before. They were charging $800. And if people go off their insurance because they become 26, we had it happen in Minnesota. A young man named Alex Smith died because he was trying to ration his insulin. You know how much it costs to make a vial of insulin? $5. They'll do just fine getting paid $35. That's what it means to stop price gouging. And I think for a community that values your elders, what Kamala Harris put out finally after all these years, asking Medicare to pay for home health care so our seniors can live in their homes, stay in their homes. And for goodness sakes, how we don't provide hearing and vision right now for our seniors. We've said that we're going to make sure they can get their hearing aids, they can get their glasses, they can live their senior years with dignity. Medicare can pay for that, and we can make it work. And it means expanding telemedicine. Look, you know this. When you get more rural in where you live, it becomes harder to access. We need to make sure that we're training and we're incentivizing healthcare professionals to serve on the Navajo Nation, to make sure they're here, to make sure that when you dial 911 or you need to get help, that an ambulance arrives. There are too many places in America and too many tribal lands where there are no EMTs to respond to emergencies. That is unacceptable and needs to be fixed. And just to be clear, when Donald Trump says he will protect the health care, that guy tried his entire presidency. It's a good thing he's not so effective and he failed at it, but he tried to repeal the ACA, ripping health care away from millions. You can bet, and I will tell you this, the only reason that millions of Americans have health care, the only reason that you can't be kicked off your insurance for pre-existing condition, the only reason your children can stay on that health care is because of the courage of one U.S. Senator, John McCain, said no to Donald Trump. Look, this guy proposed cutting services to IHS, you know that would endanger millions of families. Time and time again, Donald Trump had to do what was right for Indian country, and he chose the opposite. Kamala and I will make more affordable access to housing, make it more affordable for down payment assistance to families, build more affordable homes, and make sure that people have access because you have a dream that you want to start a business, making sure there's money on the front end in the form of grants to start out and tax credits to small business owners so you can get started. And people, I get asked, how are we going to pay for that? Well, for starters, we could make Donald Trump pay his damn taxes that he hasn't paid for 10 years. I see ads running that they're worried about the IRS. The only people worried about the IRS are Donald Trump and tax cheats are trying to dodge paying, while the rest of us always pay our taxes. So look, those forgivable loans, making sure that we have no interest loans for tribal owners looking to scale up those existing businesses to make a difference. But I'll have to tell you this. For Kamala and I, most importantly, will be there when it matters. She was there to cast that tie-breaking vote that led to the single largest investment in American history, $32 billion in tribal economies that were devastated by COVID, and $13 billion for high-speed internet, roads, bridges, clean water. That Inflation Reduction Act and the COVID money was the largest investment this nation has ever made. And I want to be the first to tell you, if some of you are out there saying this, you should be. It's about damn time you started investing. It's about damn time the money started coming. So I want to be very clear. I do not expect a pat on the back that we did that. You should not get a pat on the back for doing the right thing. But what I'm telling you for is we've done it and we've delivered, and Kamala Harris will continue to deliver for Indian country when she's elected president. Now, protecting the land, restoring or expanding 10 national monuments. And you know these national monuments across your state here, those protect tribal homelands. She signed more than 200 co-stewardship agreements with tribal nations, knowing you don't need us to direct you how you take care of your land. You don't need gatekeepers in front of the way. You need the resources and the authority to do it yourself, and that's what those agreements mean. And when Donald Trump and the rest of them tried to take away Bears Ears Monument, many of those settling claims on water rights, all of the things necessary, trying to right past wrongs, I hear people say, well, we can't be responsible for what they did in the past. Well, we can sure the hell be responsible for how we expect to do it now and what we do about it. So look, something we did in Minnesota and she did at the national level, and we need to continue to expand, is we established a murdered and missing Indigenous relatives task force to make sure it's in, making sure the resources are there, and no longer finding it acceptable when Native people go missing and it doesn't even show up in the paper and resources aren't made to solve that. That is simply immoral and unacceptable. And by establishing that, we have to correct that wrong. And I know this doesn't come as a shock to you. I'm an optimistic guy, but I think it's important to understand. Donald Trump had a chance when he was president to show you that he cared. He had a chance to show you. He excluded tribal businesses from receiving pandemic emergency relief. He tried to remove most of Bears Ears National Monument. He made it harder for tribes to regain ancestral lands, and he even tried to de-recognize tribes. Look, that's what he does. And I want to be clear about this. It was those code talkers. He didn't have any gatherings of tribal leaders at the White House, but he wanted a photo op because Americans recognize the Navajo code talkers are heroes that are at the top of how Americans believe it. They're heroes. So what did he do? He took them to the White House and made them stand in front of a portrait of Andrew Jackson. I don't know if he knows his history well enough to know what he was doing, but I damn sure guarantee you the people around him knew the insult they were throwing to Indian country by making those heroes stand in front of that portrait. So just to be clear, Donald Trump showed his soul. And I want to be clear, he goes further than that. He has opposed expanding the opportunities for casino operations by our native lands. And when they were applying for licenses, Donald Trump testified in front of Congress and said they weren't truly Native American. Well, Donald knew. He looked at him and he said, they don't look Indian. And then he went on to say, he, Donald Trump, a direct quote, has more Indian blood than a lot of those so-called Indians. So his running mate once had a quote. He has a lot of these quotes. His running mate, J.D. Vance, said, you know, the thing that people don't like about Donald Trump is the racist part of him. Yeah, we don't really like that part of him, and he's done it time and time again. But I want to talk to folks here and be to the men here who are here. Look, you're hearing a lot about all the things that are in this election, and there's a lot of super important issues. But when you frame it up like this to the men here, think of the women in your life, the women that you love, sons, daughters, wives, moms, aunties, all the rest. You know who they are. This election is literally, their lives are at stake in this election. Their ability to get health care is there. Donald Trump's the one who put the judges in that repealed Roe versus Wade, and he brags about it. He calls it a beautiful thing. Now look, that beautiful thing that he talks about, that beautiful thing is women having complications in their pregnancy and going to a healthcare provider who says you need to have this procedure to save your life, and they can't provide that medical care because of Donald Trump's abortion bans in 20 states. So that means women are being denied care and having miscarriages in parking lots. It means survivors of rape and incest have no recourse. Those are the things that Donald Trump put into place. Those are the things that you can expect to come forward. And I just want to be very clear. He's not stopping with this. He's not stopping with that. He is going to do whatever is necessary to further the furthest extremist agenda, denying you the opportunity to access reproductive care, denying women the access to just basic health care. Those are the things that Donald Trump will try and do. So to each of you here, you know what's coming. You know what we need to do. You know it all too well that American Indian and Alaska Native women already die at the rates that are so unacceptable in pregnancy that this nation should be ashamed by the statistics. You know it. When Congress restores the right to Roe versus Wade, Kamala Harris will sign it into law, and we can attack these health disparities. We can make sure that every single Native woman gets the care she needs, and that the men here know the choice should be with you and your family on how those decisions are made. Now, I got them in my family. You might have them in your family. You know there's neighbors out there. Folks who say, yeah, I don't like Trump that much, but I got to tell you, we got through 4 years of him. We can again. That is dangerous. That is dangerous complacency. That is dangerous complacency. I appreciate the folks who have come out and are starting to talk. You know who's talking about Donald Trump being dangerous? Those who know him best. Those very people that he said he only hires the best and brightest. Those were the people around him. Those people, as Kamala Harris said, are dialing 911 to the American public. This past week, the highest ranking military member in the United States, former Joint Chairman of the Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, said, I quote, Trump is the most dangerous person ever. Trump's own Secretary of Defense, a 4-star general, said he agreed with Mark Milley. And earlier this week, another 4-star general, John Kelly, Trump's former chief of staff, went on record and said, yes, Donald Trump is a textbook fascist, and he would be a dictator given the opportunity. This is a guy, and I think about this. Think about it here. Think about those who gave their lives protecting this nation from Nazi tyranny, protect this world from Nazi tyranny. Young men left the Navajo Nation and were sent around the world to protect people they will never know or never see, to give them the freedom to live as free people. That's what happened. And here's what Donald Trump said. Here's what Donald Trump said. I need the kind of generals that Adolf Hitler had. As a 24-year veteran, and to the veterans out here, that makes me sick as hell to hear this guy saying that. He disgraces every single person who wore the uniform, and he disgraces every single warrior that risked their lives to defend this nation against Nazism. And he said it to his generals. So look, he already controls the Supreme Court. Supreme Court said he can do whatever he wanted. All of us, when we were little ones in school, remember this? One of the things we learned early on is not a one of us is above the law. Nobody's above the law. That's no longer true. Donald Trump is apparently above the law. That's what the Supreme Court said. If this guy wins, he's going to appoint 3 more Supreme Court justices. 6 out of 9. 6 out of 9. So some of you here, gray hairs who are here, those of us, well, we're thinking, 10 years or whatever. This guy, in this election, is not about the next 4 years. It's about the next 40 years. It's not about this generation. It's about the next several generations. And Lord knows there is not a single Republican in Congress with the guts and the spine to stand up to him. I don't even know how these guys stand up without a spine, because they never say a damn thing. Now I want to close with this, because this is what it's about. We have an opportunity in the next 10 days to choose a different path forward, a path of kindness and decency and grace and vision and unity against all of those things. It's important to know who we're up against. And the good thing about Trump is he has damn sure told us who he is. And the people around him have told it. There is no excuse now to not know who this guy is. But I want to close with this, as I mentioned it. As your flags on your nation fly at half staff for John Kinzel Sr. He served on Iwo Jima. And some of you know that, one of the most bloody battles the Marines ever fought. They fought on that small rock in the middle of the Pacific, fighting against fierce Japanese opposition. And after that battle, The seas literally ran red with the blood of all of the young men who lie dead there. And they had to come up with and say a prayer over those bodies. And as they looked around, the only chaplain that was there happened to be the first Jewish chaplain. And there was discussions about, well, there's Catholics here, there's Protestants. There were indigenous members there, and there were black members there, who, at that time in America, couldn't even go into businesses because they weren't welcome. Couldn't drink out of the same water faucet because they weren't welcome. But there they were, giving their lives on that island to protect the freedoms for the rest of us. And Rabbi Roland Gittelshan gave what I think is ranked as maybe, along with the Gettysburg Address, the truest and clearest vision of what it means to be an American and to fight for this. And I ask you just, here's a small portion of what he said. As he gave that prayer, he said, "Here no man prefers another because of his faith, or despises him because of the color of his skin. Among these men who lie here, there is no discrimination, no prejudice, no hatred. Theirs is the highest and purest democracy." Folks, we've got 10 days. 10 days. Now, I believe hope is a powerful word. It's so powerful. When my wife and I were struggling to have a child and we were using fertility treatment, when we finally, years later, got that little girl, we named her Hope. Seemed appropriate. Thank you. And my wife is a very practical Midwestern woman who said, yeah, hope's a powerful word, but it's not a damn plan. We can't hope we're going to beat Donald Trump. We can't hope we restore reproductive rights. We can't hope that we don't turn the United States military against our own citizens. We can't hope that he doesn't become a dictator. We've got to have a plan. And you know what that plan is? To vote. To have a plan to vote. So look, if every one of us here, and you know how this works, go get that cousin who doesn't think he's going to vote, go over there, buy him a burger or something, and take him over to vote. Get him out there to vote and say it matters. We need to make sure it matters who's in the White House. It matters who cares about sovereignty. It matters who cares about our children. So what we need to do is make sure you get that photo ID, make sure you know where you're going, make sure you know that you got to get your ballot back by October 29th here, drop it in the mailbox, get it out there, and then if you can, get another person or two. Because look, I'm talking to Mark Kelly over here, Senator Kelly, this thing is going to be razor close. There is a real possibility, and I think it might be more probable, if the Navajo Nation turns out the numbers that we know you can and do, that it won't just be Arizona that goes. It is entirely possible, and I think probable, that we win the whole damn thing because of the work that was done here, the work that's done on the nation, and we put Kamala Harris in the White House. So make that plan, get out there and do that, and I just say a couple things. I'm going to humbly ask you for your vote, and I'll ask you to go look at my record, look at Kamala's record. I'll ask you to go make the case that, look, there's two choices in this race, and the differences, you know, are huge, but the opportunity for a better, more pure, more higher democracy, as you heard on those sands of Iwo Jima, are a true possibility. So I don't take your votes for granted. I ask you to get out there. And look, there are so many good reasons that Kamala Harris will be an incredible president, and there's so many reasons Donald Trump shouldn't be, but I'm just going to tell you, I know it's a little bit petty, and I'm not usually a petty person, but I'm going to be here, is I just don't want to see Donald Trump's picture on TV anymore. I don't want to have to hear it. I don't have to see it. It is not healthy. It is not healthy to call people's names. It's not healthy to denigrate people. It's not healthy to divide us. So we've got an opportunity. So you know the word. The next president of the United States, Kamala Harris, says it all the time, and it's this simple. When we fight, we win. Now in the next 10 days, that turns into when we vote, we win. When we vote, we win. Let's go win this thing. Thank you all.